What's up, everybody? This is Chris Surratt bringing you another edition of the Car Concierge Show, the show that helps with the buying, selling, maintaining, and repairing of your vehicles. On today's show, we're going to check out Volkswagen and how they're shutting down the sale of their ID4 and how it's going to affect some workers over in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're also going to check out Shawn Fain and UAW as they start their attack on Stellantis, as it still refuses to do what they said in the contract about the Belvedere plant. And last but not least, we're going to check out a young man who talks about the 10 things that he thinks that you should know before you purchase an EV vehicle. All right, so let's get started. First up, we're going to head over to Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're going to talk about Volkswagen. Volkswagen has decided that it is going to stop the sale of their Volkswagen ID4s because of some problems that they're having with the door handles. Let's check this. All right, my friend. Of course, we're going to our favorite automotive news. This is going to be a story by Jack Walsworth, and it's from September 18, 2024. Okay, scroll that up. Volkswagen stops sale of ID4 over faulty door handles, halts output, and furloughs employees. Volkswagen is pausing ID4 production in Chattanooga, with some employees set to be furloughed. Volkswagen is issuing a stop sale on its ID4 electric compact crossover and will halt production in Chattanooga as the brand searches for a remedy to fix faulty door handles. The automaker is recalling 98,806 ID4s because of defective door handles that offer insufficient water protection. The glitch can lead to printed circuit board malfunctions if water seeps through and causes an open command to the door lock while the vehicle is moving. So the door will pop up while you're driving. That's crazy. The recall affects 2021 through 2024 ID4s, and all door handles are included. The ID4 is Volkswagen's first volume electric vehicle and first electric crossover sold in the U.S. Volkswagen does not have a fix for the issue and said in a statement that it will temporarily stop ID4 production at its Chattanooga factory until a repair is available. The statement said Volkswagen will furlough 200 employees at the factory starting September 23rd. We are supporting them by supplementing unemployment from the state of Tennessee so they will still receive 80% of their base compensation and will continue to be covered by all current benefits during this time, Volkswagen said in a statement. We're also exploring ways to support our dealers while we determine a remedy for our customers. The stop sale order applies to new unsold ID4s as well as pre-owned inventory. Andrew Savas, Volkswagen's head of U.S. sales, told Automotive News that the automakers aim to have a remedy in place by the start of 2025. Yeah, bro. The recall also impacts ID4s that were built in Zwickau, Germany, according to documents posted in NHTSA's recall database. Production for the U.S. market shifted from Zwickau to Chattanooga in 2022. U.S. sales of the ID4 fell 28% to 11,857 in the first half of 2024, according to the Automotive News Research and Data Center. The 2024 ID4 with the 82 kilowatt-hour battery received a boost in power and range. We've had success with this car in the past, Sava said. It's now about being fully committed to fix the car as soon as possible and get it back on the road. All right, so let's talk about this. So, we're talking about a lot of things here. All right, so we're talking about a lot of things here. First and foremost, we're talking about a situation where we have a recall that is causing the ID4's doors to pop open, specifically when your car is moving. So that's going to be a major problem. That's probably why they're doing a stop sale on the vehicle. But the bigger issue right now is the people who already have ID4s, and this is happening to them. And Volkswagen doesn't have a fix for a problem. That's the big thing. You know, if standardly recalls, you know, come out in the first year of the vehicle coming out, and some situations such as this, you know, you don't, specifically in California, but you don't see the problem till much later down the road, specifically when time starts to decrode, rust, rubber starts to decrode, and stuff like that over, of course, of just a little bit of time, really. But standardly, recalls are figured out and taken care of in preferably in the first year of the vehicle being out on the road. But what they do is, of course, they just get an engineer to go out there, they figure it out, and they put out a recall. First they have to figure out how to fix the problem, and then they put out a massive recall. They do a massive situation of creating the parts that they need to fix the recall, and then they just start shipping them out as much as they can, as many to each dealer as they can. But the big problem for this situation is they don't have a fix for it. So that's why they have to stop selling the car, because they know that specifically in rainy places that rain a lot, for this situation, they're going to have that situation where this open command is going to start popping these doors open. And that's a dangerous situation when you're on the road. Definitely a super dangerous situation when you're on the road. The other thing is that the whole furlough situation. Now, I applaud them for trying their best to keep these employees that they're furloughing paid to any degree that they can, and I hope that these employees use this opportunity to venture out and to figure other ways to make money, because with the way the market share is, even for the EV vehicles like Volkswagen, I don't see that after this furlough them bringing everybody back. There's people that are not going to come back from their jobs. And they hope, as a company, they hope that people who they furlough find other jobs while they're on furlough, so they don't have to worry about it. It's just a win-win if you decide that you want to take your furlough time, find another position somewhere else, and then move away from the company. And it might be a good idea, because it's just, we've seen so many people lose their jobs at these factories, so many situations where factories have had to cut employees, furlough employees, and stuff like that. So if you have the opportunity to on a furlough to find another position, or find another career, or start a business, those are the things that you want to do at that time, because that's the kicker about furloughs. You can't guarantee that you're going to be coming back from it. All right, so let's keep it going. So next up, we're going to check out our man Shawn Fain and the UAW, where they've decided that they're sick of Stellantis, and as much they should be. And I keep telling you guys how Stellantis is just bad for Detroit, bad for Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep. Stellantis is, and I say this over and over again, and I've been proven to be right, that Stellantis is like a corporate raider. It really seems like they've come in, made all these highfalutin promises like a politician, and not doing anything they said they were going to do. And not only that, they've started to let these companies wear and start to fade and start to not be successful, to the point where it would give them much leeway to get rid of them. Much leeway. So let's check out what's going on with my man Shawn Fain.
And tonight, United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain is vowing to take action against Stellantis, including national strike action, if the company does not honor previous labor commitments. During a Facebook live stream to members, Fain said the automaker is failing to live up to guarantees it made in the 2023 labor deal it reached with the union. That came after a 6-week strike last year. Fain said the union would be holding strike authorization votes at several locals in the coming days.
We are fully within our rights to enforce this agreement to the fullest extent. And we are prepared to take strike action to make Stellantis keep the promise.
This all comes after the UAW filed unfair labor practice charges against Stellantis yesterday. Stellantis has not responded to a request for comment on Fain's statement.
So, real quick, let's see what Stellantis' response was. I think we can pull this up real quick.
Fight rages on to restore life to the idled Belvedere assembly plant, and now leaders with United Auto Workers prepare action.
WIFR News reporter Sydney Stoffregan talked with one state lawmaker who says a strike not only puts pressure on the company, it solidifies a bond between workers.
UAW President Shawn Fain calls auto manufacturer Stellantis out, saying it's not keeping its promises, but the company says it still has time to make it happen.
We intend to fight like hell to make this company keep their promise.
That's United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain telling Stellantis he is done waiting around. Tuesday evening, the UAW announced plans to hold strike authorization votes against the automaker, claiming it hasn't held up its end of the 2023 deal.
An extra $1 billion on their bottom line is not going to be paid for with the lives of working class people. There comes a time when we have to stand up. For our UAW family at Stellantis, that time is now.
In a statement, Stellantis says it still has time within the 4.5 years of the agreement to meet the commitments, adding a strike doesn't benefit anyone. But State Representative Dave Vela says it will send a strong message.
The more you do that, the harder it is on the company and better it is for the workers. So it is advantageous for the company not to have a strike, to negotiate in good faith and to act in good faith.
While Stellantis says Fain has no proof the company isn't moving forward, Fain says his fight is far from over.
The truth is that every plant closure is a decision of corporate executives. Communities were decimated so an executive could buy another mansion. Families were ripped apart so rich shareholders could buy another yacht.
Local UAW 1268 President Matt Franzen says at this point there is nothing to report. He says their next step will be discussed next week in Detroit.
Thank you, Sydney. And according to Reuters, if the issue is not resolved, the union has 60 days to vote on whether or not to strike.
So, all right, my friends, yeah. So, man, this whole Stellantis situation is just becoming a major issue. And who the heck wrote up a contract that gave these fools almost 5 years to put this plant back up and running? I mean, my bigger issue is that this Belvedere plant should be a side note to the fact that other plants are losing worker after worker after worker. We've seen tens of thousands of other factory workers lose their jobs in the automotive industry in the last couple of months. And now Shawn Fain is deciding that he's going to, fight Stellantis over, the Belvedere plant. What is that like? I think it's like 1,600 people that work at that plant. It won't even put a dent in the losses that most automotive factories around the world have seen. I always think the UAW has fell off so bad, and this guy is as corrupt as the next. I mean, he's facing cases of his own, so he shouldn't be sticking his neck out anywhere. And then this cat gonna have a nerve to have a boss's tears coffee cup. Man, come on, bro. You are not. He's not helping people. Fain is not helping the working man. He's not helping the working class man. He is literally helping to put the working class man out of a job in most of these factories. He's helping. That whole contract, the whole big thing contract that they did, it facilitated all of these firings and layoffs. That's what facilitated all these layoffs at the automotive factories. It facilitated them all because it demanded that these companies pay extreme amounts of money to these employees to the point where they couldn't afford to keep all the employees, so they started laying people off. It's as simple as fact as that. And I keep thinking about the whole, Biden-Harris situation of saying we have all these jobs that have been created. What about all these jobs that we've lost over the last couple of months? Specifically in the automotive industry. So many jobs lost over the last couple of months. And Stellantis ain't shit. I'm going to just say it like that. They're a corporate raider. They're destroying Chrysler, they're destroying Dodge, they're destroying Jeep. I suspect that those companies will be owned by BYD before the end of sometime next year. All right. Last but not least, go check out a young man over on YouTube. He got the Car Help Corner. Has over 188,000 subscribers. Wow, that's pretty awesome. And he's going to talk about the 10 major problems with electric cars that you must know before buying one. Let's check this out.
What are the biggest problems with owning an electric vehicle that you need to be aware of? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. Although more and more consumers are becoming interested in electric vehicles, there are many serious concerns with EV ownership that you really need to be aware of before you make a decision. So for this video, I'm going to share the 10 biggest issues and headaches of electric vehicle ownership that you really need to know about. But before we get into it, remember, if you enjoy and get value out of this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. So let's start off with the first issue with EV ownership, which is public chargers. Although the concept of using a public charger sounds very straightforward, your car has a low charge, you pull up to the charger, plug it in, wait maybe 30 to 60 minutes, and then off you go. Unfortunately, it's nowhere near that simple. The first
30 to 60 minutes, that sound bad. And he gonna still tell us something different.
issue with public chargers is that they can be extremely unreliable. It is very common to come up to one and have it not working at all. And not only can they be extremely unreliable, but it's not as simple as just tapping your credit card and charging your car. All of them have their own proprietary app that you need to download, and some of them can be really frustrating to use, or they might not work at all. And even if the chargers are working, you might be faced with a lineup of cars ahead of you, all waiting to charge just like you are. And it's not so easy that you can just go to another charger down the road, because they're often nowhere near as common as comparable gas stations. Now, some are certainly better than.
Now, this is definitely, one of the main stopping points of getting EV vehicles, because if you don't have a home charger, you'll have the ability to charge your EV vehicle overnight. It's just a situation where you're going to be stuck at one of these charging ports, and you see these cars sitting there 30, 60 minutes. He said, I know for a fact that it's longer than that. I'm pretty sure he's going to touch base with that, but he's right. Starting out, if you don't have a home charger for your EV vehicle, it's just going to be a horrible situation for you regardless.
Than others. Tesla is a very notable example that has a very reliable charging network and a better network than most other brands. But unfortunately, when it comes to every single other charger out there, you really can't rely on them on a regular basis. They are just way too problematic and unreliable. And having issues with charging is a problem that's also linked to the next major issue with electric vehicle ownership, which is unpredictable driving range. Even though an electric vehicle might advertise a certain driving range, say for example a range of 300 miles or around 500 kilometers on one charge, the real-world range can be completely different. For example, it's well known that extreme climate conditions, such as very cold or very hot weather, can have a very severe impact on the driving range. And even though most EVs have very sophisticated thermal management systems and even heat pumps that are supposed to help you in really cold weather, if you live somewhere that has, say for example, extremely cold winters, you might still suffer from a range loss anywhere from around 20 to 30%, and that's a major problem.
I did a story not too long ago about a situation, back in the Midwest. I think it was it in Detroit? Or in Chicago. It was in Chicago, where they were having a situation where the Tesla vehicles were getting stuck to the charging ports, and the charging ports weren't working at all because of the cold weather, and how the cold weather is affecting the EV vehicles. And of course, being a Midwest guy, picking up an EV vehicle, and my plan, of course, is to have an EV vehicle. I just, will maintain a gas powered vehicle, maybe even a hybrid to some degree, because, it's the hassles of the charging, the hassles of all of those things, that you just don't have with a gas powered vehicle. It's for the world. It's gonna take the world. It's gonna really take the world a long time and a lot more innovation before EV vehicles will be the mainstay on our roads. Because, you know, and he's going to get into it, and I'm going to just try to stop this so we get through this, but to have EV vehicles be the mainstay and to replace gas-powered vehicles is going to take so much more ingenuity, so much more technology, and specifically more ingenuity and technology inside the vehicles. The heat pumps are going to have to work better. You know, the charging system is going to have to be better. They're going to have to really work on that system of charging over the air. It's a lot of things going to have to change before EV vehicles will dominate the market to the point where they're on the road more than gas-powered vehicles.
And this is also true if you do a lot of long-distance highway driving or if you do any kind of towing, both of which can also impact the range of an EV. And just like most other electronics that have batteries, the manufacturers typically recommend that you keep the battery anywhere from 20 to 80% charged. So even though it might theoretically have a range of say 300 miles, the actual usable range, if you care about the life of the battery, is actually much less than that. But there are other issues with the batteries that you need to be aware of, which brings us to the next major issue and headache of EV ownership, and that is battery degradation. Unfortunately, just as they do with electrical devices, the batteries in electric vehicles do degrade over time, and they will slowly lose their capacity. It's generally accepted that most electric vehicles will lose approximately 5 to 10% of their capacity over the first 100,000 miles or 160,000 kilometers, which means if you buy an EV that
it's way less than that. It's way less than that. Now after, and I'm glad that we had the Volkswagen ID4 story in the beginning, because when I was the service manager over at Volkswagen, I had, you know, it was the first coming out of the ID4s, and we had an ID4 that a customer had for, if memory serves me correctly, he had that ID4 for about 9 months, and he brought it to the shop because it, you know, there was a check engine light and it was losing power and all these kind of things. And the engineer, of course, because they had to send the engineer because it was brand new. The engineer came out, and I think I told the story how he had to put on the whole hazmat suit, and we had to block off the whole area for the ID4. And what he had to do was he had to remove the chassis from the bottom part of the vehicle to check all of the batteries at the bottom. And then to fix the problem, he had to replace one of the batteries. And this was a brand new Volkswagen ID4, brand new. So, and another thing is that these batteries be expensive. I remember when I was a manager over at Stellantis Hyundai Toyota, they had a Toyota Prius that came in, and it had just its warranty had just ran out. I mean, just ran out, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 miles prior to it dying. Brought it in, hybrid battery died. Cost to replace that hybrid battery, almost $14,000. At that time, $14,000 for that battery. Well, we had warranty to take care of it. No big deal. Let's jump back in.
that has a range of say 300 miles when it's brand new, after several years, it might only be able to travel say around 270 to 280 miles. And this degradation will only increase as the vehicle ages and as the mileage increases over time. Which is why I always recommend that anybody that wants to buy an EV, buy the one that has the most amount of range. And if the car has a choice between two different batteries, a standard range and a long range, it's always best to go with the longer range battery, just to give yourself more of a buffer and protection against battery degradation. But unfortunately, battery degradation is not the only issue that you need to be concerned with, which brings us to the next major problem with EV ownership, and that is the tires. Now, if you're buying an EV, you might be thinking that you're going to save yourself a ton of money on maintenance, especially when it comes to things like oil changes, which are not necessary on an EV. The brakes on an EV are also known to last an extremely long time as well. But one maintenance item that's known to not last very long are the tires. And this is a major problem because electric vehicles typically have a lot of power going to the wheels, and they're also much heavier than normal vehicles. This puts a lot more wear on the tires. So depending on the vehicle that you're looking at, you could be replacing your tires 2 to 3 times more often than a comparable conventional vehicle. So all the money that you're going to save on brakes and oil changes is just going to be spent on tires. And if you were thinking that an electric vehicle was going to keep you outside the dealership or garage, think again, because that brings us to the next major issue with EVs, and that is the cost of repairs, servicing, and dealerships. Even though theoretically EVs are relatively simple when compared to a conventional vehicle, you basically have a large battery pack and electric motor, unfortunately it's just not as simple as that. EVs can still have very complicated cooling systems, a lot of complicated electronics, computer modules, and not to mention all the same features as a conventional car, with all the sensors, cameras, and screens that go along with them. So these vehicles can be extremely complicated to repair, and when something does go wrong with them, they typically do cost more than a conventional vehicle. And not only that, but because EVs have not been on the market for a terribly long time, the repair knowledge is just not there yet, especially when compared to conventional vehicles or even hybrids. And for certain brands, like say for example Tesla, that can be a major headache because they typically have a very limited network when it comes to service centers, and servicing them can be a major pain. And that brings us to the number,
which is completely true. I mean, they try to, specifically Tesla, they try to have what they would consider only EV tires for their vehicles, but they're just regular tires. They might have a slightly more tread than a standard tire, but they're just a lot more expensive than a regular tire. So, you know, it is still a regular tire, but he is right. You know, you don't go in for the oil change, you don't go in for those standard things, but of course EV vehicles stay in the dealership, and they stay in the dealership for a long time because in most cases when they come to the dealership, the technicians don't know how to fix it. They have to find a technical service bulletin, contact the technician, that, you know, the engineers, you know, to figure out problems that they've never seen before because these cars are brand new, and you know, most technicians are older. I mean, they try to train them on these things, but you don't have any field experience working on these vehicles, so it's going to take time fixing your vehicle. And you know, most times when the EV vehicle, specifically like that Volkswagen ID4 I was talking about, that vehicle was in our shop for almost a month in the shop, and that is not uncommon for these EV vehicles when they get dropped off at the dealership with a problem.
5 issue or headache with owning an electric vehicle, and that is unknown long-term reliability. Because most of the popular electric vehicles that are on the market right now have not been around for a long time, we really don't know what the long-term reliability is really going to be like. They just don't have the proven track record that you have with a lot of conventional vehicles, or even a lot of hybrids. These vehicles have been on the market for a very long time, and we generally know what to expect. But that's not really the case when it comes to EVs. No one really knows for sure what they're going to be like when they're around 12 to 15 years old, or even beyond that. It's still a bit of a mystery. And
That is so true. That is so true. I always talk to you guys about not buying a vehicle when the first year comes out. Give it at least a year so that they can establish and cite out all the recalls and all the problems that those vehicles have. But that's the major problem with the lack of research and development in these automotive makers nowadays, because they have to get these vehicles out so fast, thinking that they have to, you know, to keep the market fresh. But they don't do the research and development that like they used to, you know, a person driving a car from one side of the country to the other, you know, extensive studying on how a vehicle will ride as you just let it roll. The research and development has taken such a, you know, a decline, as it were, for most automotive, you know, manufacturers, that you just can't, you have no foresight into what is going to happen in the future when it comes to the EV vehicles. You have no foresight, you have no idea. And that is the problem. That's always a major problem with any new product like this, that, you know, down the line, specifically when the warranty runs out, that's the kicker. You would notice that even with your standard gas-powered vehicle. When the warranty runs out, these cars dang near fall apart. You see it all the time. It's crazy, really. You have a vehicle that has a 3-year, 60,000-mile warranty, and at 61,000 miles, it has a major problem. It's not uncommon and it's crazy, but that's why a good percentage of people think that these automakers are designing these vehicles like that with the understanding that how long certain parts are going to last, and then basing the warranty around that. Let's keep going.
This is an especially big problem because of the next major issue or headache with owning an EV, and that is the cost or potential failure of the EV battery. Now, so far at least, there's no real data that shows that electric vehicles are having their batteries fail. And on the bright side, electric vehicles do come with a very long battery warranty, typically 8 years long, but some of them are even 10 years long. But even though so far there's no real data to show that electric vehicle batteries are failing, the potential fear of battery failure is still going to be there, especially for owners that hold on to their vehicle past the warranty period. And this is a legitimate fear, especially when it comes to how much it costs to replace the battery packs. It can typically cost over 5 figures, at least 10 grand, sometimes even over 20 grand. So even if the risk of battery failure is extremely low, the idea that having a battery fail outside the warranty period basically makes your vehicle worthless and basically junk, it's not exactly an idea that a lot of owners can really get on board with. And this time.
And another thing, well, they haven't been out long enough to the point where you could go about getting one of those aftermarket warranties, and even at right now, I highly doubt that they'll even cover EV vehicles with those aftermarket warranties, because they understand what could happen. You have a battery go out in one of these things and $20,000 to replace a battery. What's that? Car checks don't want to deal with that. You ain't gonna get Ice-T out there to help you with that. So
ties very closely to the next issue of electric vehicle ownership, and that is resale value. Even though a lot of EVs do hold their value fairly well for the first 3 to 5 years, beyond the warranty period when the cars are more than 8 years old, that's when the value is going to drop tremendously quick. And that's because a lot of consumers don't want to be stuck with an older electric vehicle that has a ticking time bomb of a battery that could potentially fail at any point, and basically making the vehicle worthless. The value of an electric vehicle is really closely tied to the age and condition of its battery. And if you have one that has an older battery that might have a questionable lifespan left, well, that vehicle is really not going to have much value in it. And then we have the number 2 issue with electric vehicle ownership, and that is the cost of insurance. Because electric vehicles are extremely expensive to repair, this also applies to collision repairs. They can be surprisingly expensive to insure as well. So even though electric vehicles are actually quite safe, and most of them have top-notch safety ratings, the cost of repair is still extremely high, and that pushes up the insurance premiums, something that a lot of buyers might not be prepared for.
And the big thing that's happening out here in California is that people are not being able to get insurance for their vehicles at all, specifically people who are just getting vehicles. There's been a big situation where they haven't even been allowing people to get insurance. They've been, charging excessive amounts for insurance. So that's an added problem when you have an EV vehicles. And I'll tell you a little story. Of course, I run a collision center out here in California, and with the Tesla, we are not even allowed to purchase the parts to replace on Teslas. Tesla has such a monkey grip on their industry that they don't even allow outside vendors, except for particular ones, to purchase fenders and bumpers and things like that to repair these vehicles. So, it's just a situation where they try their best to hold on to as much of the availability to make money off of these vehicles as they can.
What they might be prepared for is the number 1 issue with EVs, and that is how expensive they are to buy. This one is really no secret. It is well known that most electric vehicles are extremely expensive, and definitely well above the price range of the average consumer. We have just not reached the point yet where most electric vehicles are within the price range of the lower to middle class consumer. And that is a major barrier to ownership. With how expensive new vehicles are becoming every single year, who knows exactly when electric vehicles will be attainable for consumers. But one thing's for sure, the technology is going to dramatically improve over time. And there is a very strong chance that within the next decade, or maybe even within the next 5 years, a lot of the issues in this video will eventually be addressed. I've said it before, electric vehicles are a little bit like PCs were back in the 1990s. Every year there's a brand new model that's so dramatically better than the one that came before it that you can only benefit by waiting. Now, I am by no means an electric vehicle hater. In fact, I actually really like some of the electric cars that are on the market right now. But if you really want to have an electrified vehicle that doesn't have any of the compromises that I discussed in this video, I still think for a lot of consumers, it makes a lot more sense to consider something like a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid instead. I'll have another video debunking electric vehicle myths coming very soon to the channel. But in the meantime, let me know what you think of EVs. Are you ready to consider purchasing one, or would you wait and buy something else instead in the meantime? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like.
Alright, so he thoroughly put a scare in our minds that it's going to be not a good idea for us to purchase EVs. There are a lot of good reasons there not to purchase EVs. You know, a lot of them are the reasons that I haven't purchased an EV vehicle yet. I had my heart dead set on giving me a Cadillac Lyric, and I just didn't pull the trigger. It was gonna be a bad idea for me, specifically if I decide to, you know, move. So, you know, everything he said was absolutely true, and it's all of those things that are keeping the main consumer from buying EV vehicles. Now, there's a lot of EV vehicles out there. There's a lot of people driving them. There's no doubt about that. A lot of people, specifically here in California, there's a lot of, you know, they give out a lot of subsidies, a lot of, you know, tax breaks if you have an EV vehicle. There's a lot of opportunity to purchase an EV vehicle if you really wanted one out here in California, but they're still expensive. Now, I suspect that as the political air clears and they just start to decide who's going to be president of the United States, then we're going to start to have an influx of EV vehicles from China and other places like that are going to cause the price of EV vehicles to drop. That I expect that to happen, because there's a lot of, you know, Chinese EV vehicles that are priced extremely well and definitely priced to the point where the average man can purchase one. But you know, with tariffs and stuff like that, they tend to get to the price of what you would spend on, you know, a hybrid or a brand new gas-powered vehicle. But it's true. You know, EV vehicles are great. They are wonderful, but they have their problems. They're going to continue to have their problems until there's a lot more innovation in the world, a lot more innovation when it comes to how these systems are run, specifically for cold places, even for hot places. You know, the heat affects these batteries as well. So, great little segment from that guy. Let's see, what was his show again? It's called Car Help Center. Has over 188,000 subscribers, so check him out. He's really good. We'll probably check him out again. All right, my friends, that was fantastic. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Car Concierge Show. We're going to go watch these fools race around my block in these motorcycles, and then we're going to have a good day. Y'all take care of yourselves. Peace.